Hi friends, today we'll see how we can time major events in the life of a native with the help of his or her birth chart. So friends, we will do that according to Nadi Astrology, and we will look at Jupiter's progression, the natal Jupiter's progression within the birth chart. Okay friends, and that will enable us to time the various events that took place in the life of the native. So friends, let us get started. Do subscribe to this channel and share this video, and do like it too. So friends, you can see that Jupiter is in the house of Virgo. Wherever Jupiter sits, friends, that house is considered to be the first house in Bhrigu Nadi. So here we can see that Jupiter is in the house of Virgo. So in the house ruled by Virgo. So definitely that house, that particular house will be regarded to be the first house. Okay friends. Now, so this is the first house where Jupiter is seated, and Jupiter is with Saturn. Okay friends, so Jupiter stays in one zodiac sign for 1 year. So Jupiter will stay in Virgo for 1 year, in Libra for 1 year, in Scorpio for 1 year, and so on. So Jupiter will cover each of the 12 signs in 12 years. So from Virgo to Leo, Jupiter will require 12 years to cover all the 12 signs which are placed in different houses. You can see in all the 12 houses. So that is called one full round of Jupiter. That is the first round of transit. Yes, that is from Virgo to Leo. Yes, for that Jupiter will require 12 years. Okay friends. Because Jupiter stays in one zodiac sign for 1 year, so Jupiter will stay in the house of Virgo for 1 year, then again in the house of Libra for 1 year, and so on. So we will see how we can time the various events in the life of the native with the help of Jupiter's progression. Now friends, this is the birth of the native, and say here Jupiter will stay until the native is around 1 year old. Here, when Jupiter will reach the house of Libra, the native will be around 2 years old. So like that we will see. And this is the Rashi chart or the Lagna chart or the D1 chart, okay friends, of the native. So from here we will do the calculation. Yes. So Jupiter will be in Virgo for 1 year after the birth of the native until 1 year. At the time of the native's birth, now Jupiter is with Saturn. At the time of the native's birth, the native's, Saturn shows any kind of scarcity also, friends. So the native's family was undergoing a sort of, you can say, financial problem. And in the midst of a certain financial crisis, the native was born, because Saturn shows any kind of scarcity also, friends. Yes, Saturn shows scarcity. Okay. All right. So the native was born, and friends, whenever there is Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, and this is a very strong conjunction in this chart, the degrees also, Jupiter is at 10.5 degrees around, Saturn is also at 10.7 degrees, I mean very close conjunction. So friends, now what will happen is that when Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, either in the same house or even in Nadi Astrology, we believe that even if there is a relation of aspect, the 5th aspect, 7th aspect or 9th aspect, they are very strong aspects. Yes friends, so even when such aspects are there, even the 2nd aspect is considered to be very strong in Nadi Astrology. So whenever there is an aspect between Jupiter and Saturn also, we will say that there is a sort of combination between Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter signifies the life of the native, Saturn signifies obstacles. So the native's life may be, you can say full of obstacles, or at every step in life the native may encounter certain obstacles. But friends, or some delay in getting his work done, delay in every matter, in everything, whatever he wants to do in life, he may encounter some kind of delay in life. Okay, now friends, but if Jupiter is in good dignity, here Jupiter is in a sign of Mercury, and in Nadi astrology we believe that Jupiter and Mercury, they actually support each other, because Jupiter is also the planet which signifies knowledge and Mercury signifies education. Education only enables us to attain knowledge. So Mercury and Jupiter, actually they support each other in a way. So Jupiter is in the sign of Virgo ruled by Mercury, and Saturn is also in Virgo. So we can say that Jupiter and Saturn is in a friendly sign of Virgo. So they are in good dignity, friends. So if Jupiter and Saturn, they are in good dignity, in good zodiac signs and friendly signs, and if you also have to look at the nakshatra in which they are placed, then definitely you can say that the native will be able to overcome the obstacles. Obstacles will be there, but the native, will be able to overcome them. That we can say. Yes, friends, when the dignity is good, when Jupiter and Saturn, they are in good dignity, obstacles will come, but the native will be able to overcome them. Okay, and Jupiter is the native, Saturn is work, so the native will be always busy with work. That also we can say. So at the time of the native's birth, that was the situation, a sort of financial crisis the family was going through. Then when the native was 2 years old, you can say, Jupiter reached the house of Libra. The native was 3 years old, Jupiter reached the house of Scorpio, house ruled by Scorpio. When Jupiter reached the house ruled by Scorpio, friends, you can see Venus is in Cancer. So from there, Venus is casting its 5th aspect on Scorpio, on the house of Scorpio. Sun is also casting the 5th aspect, and also Rahu is casting. Sun signifies the native's father, Venus signifies money. So the father gained money. Rahu signifies secrecy. So the father gained money through some secret means, or secretly the father was able to gain money, or you can say he gained some wealth in a secretive manner. And so friends, when the native was around 3 years old, the financial situation of the family improved, because the native's father gained money secretly. Now, in an unconventional way, because Rahu shows breaking the convention. Okay, friends, now let's move on. So when Jupiter, the natal Jupiter reached the house of Sagittarius, the native was 4 years old. Okay, so at the age of 4 years, you can see that Mercury is in Gemini. Mercury is casting 7th aspect on the house of Sagittarius, and Mercury is in its own sign, and it's very powerful in Gemini. So the native got admitted into one of the best schools in the town at the age of 4 years. So got admitted into the nursery class, and it was one of the best schools in town. So the native got through, appeared in the admission test, and the native was successful in that test, and then the native got admission. So that was an academic, you can say, a small achievement for a 4-year-old child. Then at the age of 5 years, friends, what happened? You see, Moon and Ketu, they are there. Okay, and Mars is also casting 8th aspect on Ketu. Mars's 8th aspect is on Ketu. Mars's 8th aspect is considered, and Mars's 4th aspect, 4th and 8th aspect of Mars are considered, friends. So Mars is casting its 8th aspect on Ketu, and Jupiter, natal Jupiter, has reached this house where you have Ketu. Now Mars is also casting the aspect, and Moon is also there. So it shows, friends, that the native, Moon signifies the mother, Moon also signifies traveling. So while traveling, the native met with an accident at the age of 5 years. At that time, at the time of the accident, the native was traveling with the native's mother. Moon also shows travel, and it was a road accident, and the native's mother, both of them got hurt and they were in a hospital. They were like, they had to, you know, get their treatment, and maybe they were given injections or whatever. So Mars Ketu. So that happened. Accident took place, okay, at the age of 5. Then at the age of 6, the house of Aquarius, 7, the house of Pisces, 8, the house of Aries, 9, the house of Taurus, and 10. When the native was 10 years old, Jupiter reached the house of Gemini when the native was 10 years old. So at the age of 10 years, what happened, friends? Again, the native did very well in studies because Mercury is in Gemini. The native topped in her class in school. Okay, so it was a small academic achievement for the native. So the native did very well in studies, and here Jupiter reached at the age of 10. But friends, you can see that Mars is there, okay, and Ketu is here. Ketu is retrograde, and in Nadi Astrology we believe that though Ketu is in Capricorn, you can see that Ketu is in Capricorn. This is Ketu. I'm so sorry, friends, if it's not clear. This is Ketu. So Ketu is in Capricorn, but Ketu's 50% presence and aspect will also be there in Sagittarius. So Ketu's 50% presence and aspect will also be there in the house of Sagittarius. So you can say that from here, because Ketu is in Sagittarius, Ketu's 7th aspect fell on Mars. So from Sagittarius, Ketu's 7th aspect is now falling on Mars, that is in Gemini. Again, Mars-Ketu combination is formed, and the natal Jupiter is traveling, and in the course of its progression, natal Jupiter has reached the house of Gemini. So again, at the age of 10, what happened, friends? The native did very well in studies in school, but then the native got sick. The native suffered from typhoid and was admitted into a hospital. At the age of 10, at that time the native was 10 years old. The native was too small to take all those bitter pills and medicines. The native couldn't even swallow medicines at that time. So the native was given a lot of injections, lots of medicines, vitamins, everything was injected into the native's body. The native suffered from a severe typhoid and was admitted in a hospital, and the native had to stay in the hospital for more than a week. So all that happened because Mars-Ketu combination is there. Ketu will also be retrograde in Sagittarius, and Ketu's aspect is falling on Mars. So you can see, friends, that all these things can happen. So the native was sick and was in a hospital and was undergoing treatments and had to take so many injections. Okay, injection, syringe, injection goes into the body. So injection instrument, that is signified by Mars, it goes and gets mixed into the medicine has to go, and it reaches the blood. Mars also signifies blood, and Ketu signifies roots. So medicine goes to the very root. So it goes and attacks the very root of the problem within the body. So Ketu signifies roots. So injection is also connected to Mars Ketu. So friends, that happened. Then let us go to, this is at the age of 10. At the age of 11, you see, friends, Sun is there. Sun is your personality. Sun is your fame. And Venus and Rahu. Rahu shows any kind of technology. Venus also shows the face and camera. And Rahu also shows video recording technology with camera. So when you have Venus and Rahu together, that shows any kind of video recording technology. And Sun shows that, earning some sort of fame because of that video recording, because your Sun is the projection of the self, yes, which Sun enables you to attain fame, some sort of fame. So the native, Rahu also shows any kind of illusion. It shows television, it can show cinema, whatever. Now the native, played a small part in a television serial. The native got the opportunity at the age of 11 to, play some role in a daily soap on national television. So the native got the opportunity, and at that time the native was only 11 years old. And the native, played that part, and everybody saw the native on the television screen. And everybody in school, everyone congratulated the native and all that. Okay, friends? So all that happened because you have Sun, Venus and Rahu at the age of 11. Now let's move ahead. At the age of 12, the sign of Leo. I'm going to the major events, friends, the most important events that took place. At the age of 13, you have Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn shows hard work. So from the age of 13 onwards, the native became very hardworking in studies, because Saturn is also in Virgo. Virgo is a sign ruled by Mercury. Mercury signifies education. So in the field of education, in studies, the native became very serious, very hardworking. The native even began, burning the midnight oil. The native became very studious. And earlier on also the native did well in studies. Even when the native was, at the age of 10 also the native did well. But then the native was not very hardworking at that time. At that time the native was only 10 here when Jupiter reached the house of Gemini. But when Jupiter reached the house of Virgo, by that time the native was a teenager almost. You can say that the native was around 13 years of age. She was around 13 years old. So from that age onwards, from her teenage onwards, the native actually started, studying very sincerely, became a very sincere student, very sincere in studies. And that enabled the native to gain knowledge also. Jupiter shows knowledge, and Jupiter is also in the sign of Virgo. So the native also gained knowledge because of, the hard work that was, because of the efforts which the native made. So because of that, the native also gained knowledge. And Jupiter is in Virgo, so knowledge in the field of education, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Mercury shows education. So the native gained knowledge in the field of in the field of academic studies only. And the native, kind of became very serious and became very curious, because Mercury, Jupiter and Saturn, they are ruled by Mercury. Jupiter is in the sign of Mercury. The native became very curious about certain subjects, and Mercury shows curiosity, the desire to learn. So the native's curiosity enabled the native to gain knowledge. Yes, to gain knowledge and regarding various subjects. Yes, friends. So, and the native Jupiter also shows some kind of prosperity, and Jupiter also shows when a person earns good name, that is also shown by Jupiter. So the native was actually becoming known even in school as a very sincere and studious person. The native was looked upon as a very sincere student even in the school. Yes, so that happened when the native was 13 years old. Okay, and Jupiter also shows, friends, the influence of teachers in your life. So the native also, and the natal Jupiter has traveled there to the house of Virgo, where the native also encountered teachers. Jupiter shows teachers, and those teachers actually influenced the native in a positive way and inspired the native to work hard, which is shown by Saturn. Yes, so the native came in contact with Saturn. Saturn inspired the native to work very hard, and native came in contact with good teachers. And teachers, all the school teachers, yes, they can be signified by Jupiter. and they also inspired the native to work very hard. Okay, so that is the age of 13. Then we move ahead. 14 years Libra, 15 years Scorpio, the house of Scorpio. At the age of 16 years, Jupiter reached the house of Sagittarius. At the age of 16 years, the native appeared in the board examination, and the native did very well, because you can see Mercury is in Gemini, Mercury is casting the 7th aspect on the house of Sagittarius, and Mercury is in a very powerful sign. So the native did very well in the board examinations. But friends, before the board examinations, in that very year, so when the native was around 16 years old, so in that very year, just before the board examination, 1 month before the board examination, the native also had to undergo a surgery, because you can see Mars is aspecting the house of Sagittarius, and Ketu is also present in Sagittarius, because Ketu is retrograde. Though it is in Capricorn, it will be also present in Sagittarius. So that is why what happened is that, friends, the native had to undergo some sort of surgery also at the age of 16. Had to undergo a surgery, and it was a minor surgery, but then it was a surgery. And after the surgery, after 1 month, the native faced the board examination, and the native came out with flying colors, did very well in the board examination. Okay, now let us move further. So at the age of 17, the native stepped into college, and you can see moon here. So the native had to travel, had to undertake some short travel, because the college was very far away from the native's place. Okay friends, so the native had to do that. And you can see that there is Ketu here. Ketu also shows that moon is with Ketu, and the native reached this house of Capricorn. The native had to travel mainly for the native's education. The native had to travel for attaining education, travel to the institution. But Ketu is there. Ketu also shows any kind of technology. So the native was, at the age of 17, the native studied in the science stream. So Ketu shows any kind of technology, small machinery. So the native was, performing experiments, small experiments in the scientific laboratories also, in the science labs at the college, because the native was in the science stream. So there are small machines in the physics lab also. You have a microscope and other machines, all kinds of small machinery you have there, which even when you step into college, even in the high secondary level also, you have to perform so many experiments in the physics laboratory, in the chemistry laboratory also. You need to deal with small machines. Mainly machines, you have to deal with them in the physics laboratory. And friends, in the biology laboratory also, you have to deal with microscope and all. Yes, microscope, you have to perform all kinds of experiments. In the biology laboratory, you have to do all kinds of dissections and all. Dissection, that is Ketu. So the native had to travel, and native was associated with, because when Ketu is in Sagittarius, friends, then Mercury is casting the 7th aspect on Ketu. So Ketu already has that aspect of Mercury. It already has. So somehow it shows that the education will somehow be connected also to all that, something to do with machinery, experiments, scientific experiments. Ketu shows that. Research labs and all. So people who are in the science stream, they have to do all kinds of experiments, okay, in the labs, and there are all kinds of small machinery there. So Ketu shows all that. And Ketu has a connection anyway with Mercury, because when Ketu is retrograde, Ketu's aspect falls on Mercury. So Ketu is connected to education. So all these experiments are connected to education only. So the native was doing a lot of all that the native was experiencing, was engaged in all that when the native was 17 years old. Okay friends, 17 years old. All right. Then at the age of 18, this 17, at the age of 18, the native reached the house of Aquarius. Now Mercury is casting the 5th aspect here, because Mercury is in Gemini. So from Gemini, Mercury will cast the 5th aspect. I'm so sorry, Aquarius, no? 9th aspect. Mercury's 9th aspect will fall on the house of Aquarius. So Mercury is in Gemini, 3, 4, Gemini is 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 9th aspect. Mercury's 9th aspect will fall here. Okay. Now Mercury's 9th aspect is here, and you can see that this is the house of Aquarius. Okay friends. And Ketu's 2nd aspect. In Nadi astrology we consider the 2nd aspect. 2nd aspect, 3rd aspect, all these aspects are there in Nadi astrology, and 2nd aspect is very powerful. So Ketu's 2nd aspect is falling on the house of Aquarius. Okay. Again Mercury is having 9th aspect like this. It's coming. Mercury's 9th aspect is coming on the house of Aquarius. So Mercury and Ketu are coming together. Okay. So Mercury shows education, Ketu shows connection with machinery and all that. No doubt. Ketu shows experiments in the laboratory. So at the age of 18, also the native was doing all such experiments, in the science labs, and all that was connected very much to her education, because the native was in the science stream. Okay friends. But you can also see one thing. Mars is also casting its 9th aspect on the house of Aquarius. Mars in the chart of the natural, that is in the chart of the Kalpurush, or in the chart of the cosmic man, Mars is the natural lord of the 8th house. Mars is the natural lord of the 8th house in the chart of the Kalpurush, because in the 8th house you have the sign of Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars. So Mars naturally signifies any kind of change, transformation, ups and downs and all that. So now Mars is also casting the 9th aspect on. Mars's 9th aspect is also considered in Nadi astrology. So some change is now going to take place. Some change will take place. Mercury is there, again Ketu is also there. Ketu is casting 2nd aspect, and Mercury is also casting 9th aspect. So some change will now take place in the field of studies. So what happened? Ketu also shows detachment, any kind of detachment. Ketu shows obstacles. So the native encountered some obstacle in the field of education. The native had to drop out in that particular year. The native suddenly, out of nervousness or whatever, the native, was suffering from a very high fever. Just, before the examination, the native was suffering from a very high fever. And that high fever was aggravated by maybe the sense of nervousness and all. So, and it was a very high fever. The native could not appear in the final examination in high secondary. The native could not appear. So Ketu shows obstacle. So Mercury, Ketu, Mars. Mars shows again change, transformation, ups and downs. So in this case, native's career had to suffer. Sudden change came about. The native had to drop that year. The native was, you can almost say, a college dropout for 1 year. He did not appear in the final examination. Could not appear. Okay. So Ketu shows any kind of obstacle. Now obstacle in the field of education we can see. Yes friends? So we can see here that the native could not appear in the final examination in a high secondary, and so Ketu is there. Ketu shows any kind of obstacle, and that happened. And Mercury's ninth aspect, so in the field of education it happened. Okay, then again, this is the next house, is the house ruled by Jupiter, Pisces. Okay friends, so Jupiter is anyway, Jupiter in its progression has reached the house of Jupiter. Pisces is again, because it is ruled by Jupiter, so you can say that, and Jupiter is also casting direct 7th aspect, okay, on this house. So what happened is that next year, that is at the age of 19 years, this is 18, 19, 16, 17, 18, 19, at the age of 19 years, the native appeared in the examination and cleared the examination finally. So Saturn is also aspecting, so there was some delay, but finally the native was successful, because after all Jupiter's aspect is there, and Jupiter is always powerful. So Jupiter's aspect is there, and the natal Jupiter also reached the house of Pisces. So finally the native cleared, and also the native worked hard, because Saturn is aspecting, Saturn is in Virgo. The native worked hard and the native finally cleared the examination. And then friends, what happens, you see what happened, the native got admitted into the bachelor's degree course. Okay, so bachelor's degree, first year, second year, third year. So in the third year, the native completed the bachelor's degree. Mercury is in Gemini. The native did very well. The native scored very brilliantly in the bachelor's degree. And friends, the native scored very good marks. Yes, and was one of the toppers in the college actually. The native was one of the toppers. Okay. So in the bachelor's degree, the native did very well. Now friends, you see, here the native did very well, bachelor's degree, and you can see that Mercury has some connection with Ketu. So Mercury is education, and Ketu is also in, I told you, Mercury, Ketu, they have some connection. So the bachelor's degree the native acquired, but the native changed the stream. Mars shows any kind of change. So a major change also again came about in the stream. So the native changed the stream, shifted to another stream. The native was in the science stream, now the native shifted to the art stream. And Ketu's aspect on Mercury, Ketu also shows any kind of language. Language is also shown by Ketu. So the native, studied a language, a foreign language. Yes, and in the bachelor's degree, okay, the native studied English. And then what happened, you see friends, the native did very well, secured very good result in the bachelor's degree examination. Okay, then what else we can say friends, next year, that is at the age of, this was 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So at the age of 22, the native cleared the bachelor's degree examination and came out with flying colors. 22. Then at the age of 23, something happened. At the age of 23, what happened friends? You can see that Jupiter, in the course of its transit, Jupiter will reach this house where you have Rahu. So the native also appeared in the examination, final examination, and eventually came out with flying colors. But the native, immediately after that, next year, the native fell sick, and the native Rahu shows any kind of sickness also. So the native suffered from chicken pox. Okay, and Venus also represents the face. So there were marks on the face also. And sun also shows your health. And Rahu, you know, Rahu is causing disturbance to the health. Yes, and sun also shows that it was very evident, like the marks on the face. So the natives suffered from chicken pox also in that particular year. But friends, another interesting thing also happened. You know what happened, I'm telling you. That is immediately after, you know, appearing in the bachelor's degree examination, the native appeared in the examination, and the native secured good results also. Then the native fell sick. But next year again what happened, you can see Venus also shows love. Sun is there, and Venus is in Cancer, so a lot of emotions are involved, you know. So, and sun is there. Sun also shows spiritual love. And Rahu shows again somebody who's from a different community, from a different language community. Rahu shows even from a different, it could be from a different religion also. So the native fell in love with a person from a different community altogether. So Venus shows love, but then that love was also it was a very spiritual bond, because sun is also there in good dignity. Yes. So after the native recovered from chicken pox, and then the native was normal, and then, you know, like what happened, the native happened to meet someone, and the native fell in love with that person. So that happened. So in that particular year it happened. But that relationship was very short-lived. It did not last. And it was just a sort of spiritual bond only, because sun is there. And so the native loved that person, and that person also loved the native. But then it was not, you cannot call it a proper relationship, because they never even confessed their love for each other. But then the native fell in love. So this indication is there, because these planets are showing that particular combination. Okay, now let us move ahead, friends. So what you can say, that this is 22, 23. So at the age of 23 this happened. Then the native 23, 24, 25. At the age of 25, the native did very well, because Jupiter is in Virgo. Virgo again shows education. Jupiter is knowledge. So at the age of 25, the native secured very good result, brilliant result in the master's degree examination. Yes, and the native did very well. Jupiter shows knowledge, and master's degree is signified by Jupiter. The education which you acquire at the university, that is signified by Jupiter. So the native studied at the university, because Jupiter is the natural lord of the 9th house in the chart of the cosmic man. So that is higher education, university level education is signified by Jupiter. And the native worked really very hard. Saturn is also in very good dignity. The native worked very hard, and the native came out with flying colors in the master's degree examination. The native did very well. The native topped the university, did brilliantly in the final examination, in the master's degree examination. Okay. Then friends, what you can say, Saturn also shows profession. The native also got a job. In that very year, the native appeared in the examination, cleared the examination, results were declared, and the native immediately got a job also. Saturn shows employment, your profession. And what kind of job? Saturn is with Jupiter, the job of a teacher. And that also the native got the job of a teacher in a college, in an educational institution, yes, which is meant for higher education. So the native got the job of a teacher in a college at the age of 25 itself. Okay friends, then you see Jupiter is traveling to the house of Libra. At that time, the native's age was 26. The house of Libra. Libra is a sign which is ruled by Venus. So when the natal Jupiter reached the house of Libra, the native got married. The native got married, and because the natal Jupiter reached the house of Libra. So the native did very well in the master's degree exam. The native got a job, and then next year the native also got married, because Jupiter, the natal Jupiter, has reached the house of Libra. So the native got married. So friends, till here I would like to keep the session today. I would like to end the session here, and this is part 1. Part 2 of this session will be discussed in the next video. So there will be another part of this particular video. Today the video is getting very long, so I would like to end it here. But there is another part. There will be after the marriage, what happened, what all happened after the native's marriage. So there are many more interesting events coming up. So I will discuss that in the next video. Thank you, friends.